अस्सलाम वालेकुम। आज हम पढ़ेंगे मेथड्स ऑफ सोशल रिसर्च, कोर्स कोड 9607। ठीक है, इसके कोर्स कोऑर्डिनेटर हैं सैयद इमरान हैदर और इलामा इकबाल यूनिवर्सिटी का है। फर्स्ट चैप्टर है इंट्रोडक्शन टू रिसर्च मेथड्स। इंट्रोडक्शन। सोशल रिसर्च is the process of finding something new and original about the social world. It is a systematic practice of rigorous rules and regulations to produce knowledge related to social world. Social research process is an exciting discovering activity in which researcher needs to think logically, follow rules, and repeat step over step. It is explicit, systematic, controlled. The whole process requires persistence, personal integrity, tolerance for ambiguity, in interaction with others, and pride in doing quality work. The research process is a combination of theories and ideas with facts in a systematic way, and of course, utilization of imagination and creativity. It is a structured, organized, and systematic process of producing the knowledge about the social phenomena. Objectives. After reading this unit, the students will be able to differentiate between scientific and non-scientific ways of acquiring knowledge, science, understand the way sciences operate, get acquainted with the steps involved in research process, get familiar with alternate source to scientific research. Major topics: alternative to social research, how social research works, step of the research process, types of social research, method of social research, research paradigms, values. Alternative to social research. Before going into the exploration of methods for social research, there is a need to go through the alternative to social research. A great deal of what we know in our social life is based on the alternatives to social research. At times, this source of knowledge is found to be true, but it's the social research knowledge which is more likely to be true and fewer potential errors. It is important to recognize that research does not always provide perfect knowledge. Let us review the alternative briefly. Number two is authority. Humans get knowledge from parents, teachers, experts, books, and media. Whenever we accept something as being true just because someone is in position of authority says it is true or because it is an authoritative publication, we are using authority as a basis of knowledge. Traditions. Tradition is a special case of authority where past is considered as authority. Tradition means acceptance of something as being true because it is the way the things have always been. Common sense. We know a lot of things about the social world from our ordinary reasoning or common sense. In this case, we rely on what everyone always knows and what just makes sense. Common sense is valuable in daily life, but it can allow logical fallacies to slip into our mind. Media myths. Television shows, movies, newspaper, magazines, articles, and social media are important sources of information about social world. Unfortunately, these all sources tend to perpetuate myths of culture. Also, selective emphasis on an issue by media can change the public thinking in a specific way. Personal experience. If something happens to us, if we personally see it or experience it, we accept it as true. Personal experience or seeing is believing has a strong impact and is a forceful source of knowledge. Unfortunately, the personal experience can lead us astray as what appears to be true may actually be due to a slight error or distortion in judgment. How social research works. The critical factors which separate social research from other sources of acquiring knowledge is that it uses scientific approach to understand aspects of social research. Let us take a brief look at science. Science. When most people hear the word science, the first image that comes to in your mind is one of the test tubes, computers, rocket ships, people in white lab coats. Some sciences, such as the natural sciences like biology, chemistry, physics, and zoology, deals with material and physical world. The natural sciences are the basis of new technology and receive a lot of publicity. Most people think of them when they hear the word science. The social sciences, such as anthropology, psychology, political science, and sociology, involve the study of people in context of their beliefs, behaviors, interactions, institutions, and so forth. Fewer people associate these disciplines with the word science. These disciplines are some things. sometimes referred to as soft sciences. This is not because their work does not follow the righteous rules and regulations, but because their subject matter, human, social life, is a fluid, formidable to observe, and hard to measure precisely with laboratory instruments. The real emergence of science can be traced back to a major shift in thinking that began with the Age of Reason to Enlightenment period in the Western European history, 1600s to 1800s. The Enlightenment ushered in a wave of innovative thinking. It includes a faith in logical reasoning on emphasize or experience in the material world, a belief in human progress, and questioning of traditional religious authority. It began with the process of natural world and spread to the study of social life. At one time, people created new knowledge using pre-scientific or non-scientific methods, including alternatives as discussed previously in this unit. But over the centuries, science has developed as a legitimate source of producing knowledge. Science refers to both a system of producing knowledge and the knowledge produced from that system. The system evolved over many years and is slowly but constantly changing. It combines assumption about the nature of the world and knowledge, and orientation towards knowledge, and sets of procedures, techniques, and instruments for gaining knowledge. It is visible in social institutions called the scientific community. The scientific community science is a given life through the operation of the scientific community, which sustains the assumptions, attitudes, and techniques of science. The scientific community is a collection of people and set of norms, behaviors, and attitudes that bind them together to sustain the scientific ethos. It is a community because it is a group of interacting people who share ethical principles, beliefs, values, techniques, and training along with career paths. It is not a geographical community, rather, it is a professional community whose the scientific community includes both natural, whose members share an outlook on and a commitment to scientific research. For the most part of the core scientific community use scientific research techniques that have been developed and defined by the scientific community. Norms of scientific community. Behaviors of any scientific community is regulated by the social norms. The five basic norms of science are discussed below. Universalism, irrespective of who conducts research and regardless of where it is conquered, the research is to be judged on the basis of scientific merit. Organized skepticism, scientists should not accept new ideas or evidence in a carefree, uncritical manner. Instead, all evidence should be challenged and questioned. Each research is subjected to intense criticism and scrutiny. Disinterestedness, scientists must be neutral, impartial, receptive, and open to unexpected observations or new ideas, even if they run against their positions, and should honestly accept all findings based on high quality research. Communalism, scientific research must be shared with others as it belongs to everyone. Creating scientific knowledge is a publicly act, and the findings and the public property. Honesty. This is general cultural norms, but it is especially strong in scientific research. Scientists demand honesty in all research. Dishonesty or cheating in scientific research is a major taboo. The scientific method and attitude. The scientific method is not one single thing. It refers to the ideas, rules, techniques, and approaches that scientific community uses. The method arises from a loose consensus approaches that scientific community uses. The methods arises from a loose consensus within the community of the scientists. It's better to focus on scientific attitudes or way of looking at the world. It is an attitude that values craftsmanship with pride in creativity, high quality standards, and hard work. Doing science includes many methods, but it's the scientific attitude which results in acceptance by scientific community. Science is a transformative process. Transformation means altering something, converting it from one thing to another. In a research process, the researcher starts with guesses and questions and applies specialized methods and techniques to this raw material. At the end of the process, a finished product of value appears. Scientific knowledge. A highly productive researcher is one who created a great deal of and new knowledge that greatly improves people's understanding of the world. Steps of the research process. The research process requires a sequence of steps. Various approaches suggest somewhat different steps, but most seems to follow the same steps. Choose topic. The process begins with a researcher selecting a topic. It can be a good general idea of study or issues such as crime, divorce, property, and climate change. Generally, it is too broad at initial stage and need is there to narrow it down to a feasible level of measurement. Number two, focus research question. In the second step, the researcher narrows down or focus the topic in a research questions that he or she can address in their study. This is done by learning about the topic and for this researcher generally reviews past research or literature. Number three, research design. In the third step, the researcher plans how he or she will conduct the specific study or research project. This step involves decision making about the practical details of doing the research. Example, whether to use a survey or observe in the field, how many subjects to use, which questions to ask. Number four, collection of data. Now, after the completion of research design, the researcher is ready to collect data or evidence, and it is done by asking the people questions and recording their responses. Number five, analyze data. Once the researcher has collected the data, his or her next step is to manipulate or analyze the data to see any patterns that emerge. Number six, interpret data. In the next step, the patterns in the data or evidence help the researcher to interpret or give meaning to the data, inform others. Finally, the researcher writes a report that describes the background of the study, how he or she has conducted it, and what is discovered in the whole process. And in this step, others are informed by submitting the research report for publication in a social science journal. The seven-step research process is generally taken by researcher as very simple, but in practice, the researcher rarely completes the step one, then leaves it to move on the step two, and so on. Research is more an interactive process in which steps blends into each other. A later step may stimulate reconsideration of a previous one. The process is not strictly linear; it may flow several directions before reaching an end. Moreover, does not end at step 7, as it is an ongoing process and the end of the study often initiates new thinking and fresh research questions. Now, types of social research. In this unit, the two styles of social research being utilized in research process will be briefly discussed. The one is quantitative and the other is qualitative. Both styles are widely used in social research, but each is rooted in a distinct logic or approach to social science. Each has its strengths and limitations, topics or issues which it leaders in classic studies that provide remarkable insights into social life. Few researchers support quantitative style and others give logic to second qualitative style, but it is the genius of King, Cohen, and Verba 1994 who started that the best research often combines the features of both styles. Few of the key features of both styles are tabulated below. Quantitative style measure objective facts, focuses on variables, variability is key, value free, independent of context, many cases subjects, statistical analysis, research is detached. Qualitative style constructs social reality, cultural meaning, focus on interactive process, authenticity is key, values are present and explicit, situationally constrained, few cases subject, thematic analysis, researchers is involved. Methods of social research. Research can be classified as applied or pure. In this we will briefly discuss both methods of research process. Pure research. Pure research is sometimes called basic research, involves developing and testing theories and hypotheses that are intellectually interesting to the investigator and might have some application in the future but have no application to social problem in the present time. In this method, research work often involve testing hypotheses containing very abstract and specialized concepts. An idealistic researcher who thinks for the betterment of society are involved in conducting of this method of research. Number two is applied research. Applied research covers a wide range of social sciences areas, including education, busing to achieve racial integration, drug addiction and use, alcoholism, crime and delinquency, women in the labor force, and problems of age. Applied research also deals with problems only partially in the area or the social research, including the energy crisis, air and water and noise pollution. Applied research often entails large scale of studies with subsequent data collection problems. Such studies are expensive and often cannot be conducted without the support from some funding agency, either from public or private sector. This funding aspect of applied research is one of the serious criticism on this method of research, especially from a realistic school of thought. Although it is customary to distinguish between pure and applied research in both the physical and social sciences, these two categories are not mutually exclusive in the sense that any study that is pure cannot have practical application, vice versa. As some researchers feels that the ultimate goal of research is a study that is helpful in solving social problems, at the same time makes a valuable contribution to the social science literature. Research paradigms in social science, a paradigm is a perspective or frame of reference for viewing the social world consisting of a set of concepts and assumptions. A paradigm is a mental window through which the researcher views the world. Generally, what he or she sees in the social world is what is objectively out there as interpreted by his and her paradigm of concepts, categories, assumptions, and biases. Thus, two researchers describing the same thing from two different paradigms may produce considerably different accounts. The concept of plagiarism is an old one, but it received new emphasis through the publication of Thomas Kuhn's 1962, The Structure of Scientific Revolution. This work by Kuhn was an inspiration for a number of analyses of social science in terms of plagiarism, notably Friedrich's 1970 A Sociology of Sociology and Ritter's 1975 Sociology, a multiple paradigm science values. Paradigms differ in terms of assumptions and values, as Wilson 1971 proposed that by values we simply mean conceptions of the desirable and undesirable. Values certainly exist even in few major paradigms like Malthusian and Marxist, although they may be hidden or latent, and in some cases even the researchers themselves are not aware of all their own values. The researchers exposing different paradigms will have different values. They will choose different problems to research and will interpret the findings differently. Since values are not amenable to testing and since there are a possible source of bias or at least failure to communicate what should be done about the values. Two alternatives There are at least two alternatives to deal with values in the process of social research. We may attempt to suppress values and conduct value-free research. Proponents of this position say that a researcher is perfectly free to express his or her political and moral values at home with his or her family, but once he is at work, he or she would leave values behind. Proponents of the other position say that it is impossible to suppress one's values and that it matters to researcher to state his or her values explicitly and use them in conjunction with the facts rather than he or she has a value position only to have the values enter unconsciously in a somewhat convert or dishonor manner. Now you can answer these questions, self-assessment questions. What are different sources of knowledge other than research? Discuss, highlight the norms of scientific community, why these are relevant for a researcher, what steps are involved in research process, elaborate, define and differ between the types of social research.